We continue Season 4's opening story arc, set 9 days after the end of Season 3, according to Dr. Franklin. Lanier swings by.
In coming to you, I'm committing a breach of protocol.
Valen has taught us that snitches get stitches. Apparently there's a problem with Delenn, and she's not the only one with a problem.
Who are you? What do you want? Who are you? What do you want?
This is strange even by hentai standards. Sheridan wakes up from that back in his cave, where his new buddy's hanging out.
There's no way off, Zahadu. Might as well give up. Reconcile yourself as I did.
The first obligation of a prisoner is to escape.
Second is to release the proof that the warden and top guard of the prison are conspiring to commit fraud and murder. The dude finally lets slip that his name is Lorien.
Words have meaning, and names have power. The universe began with a word, you know?
Is this thing on? Lorien explains for a while about things, but Sheridan's a bit distracted on account of being stuck down here. So Lorien gets on with the reality. Sheridan is dead. Sheridan finds it a bit hard to take, but then you're always the last to know these things, aren't you? But Lorien points out that despite it being 9 days, Sheridan is neither hungry nor thirsty. So either he's dead, or, and I think this is the more likely scenario, he's a toy in a barrel that is destined for orphans. Lorien is played by Wayne Alexander, the actor who portrayed Sebastian in Comes the Inquisitor. He had left a real impression with his standout performance. And so naturally he gets all the philosophical lines, but he's also useful. Actually, you know what? He brings to mind a line from Terry Pratchett's Small Gods. One minute it's all, is truth beauty and is beauty truth, and does a falling tree in the forest make a sound if there's no one there to hear it? And then just when you think they're going to start dribbling, one of them says, incidentally, putting a 30-foot parabolic reflector on a high place to shoot the rays of the sun at an enemy ships would be a very interesting demonstration of optical principles. In this case, amidst his babble, Lorien makes a point to Sheridan. You jumped from a great height. That means either you hit the bottom, which would mean you're dead, or you didn't hit the bottom, which means you're still falling. And if you're still falling, then this is all just in your head. Let me tell you from first experience, there is nothing quite the sensation of saying, logically speaking, none of this can possibly be happening. After a bit more of talking, Sheridan finally has had enough philosophy and decides to move on to Phi Ed, and pins Lorien against the wall, where he then gives Sheridan the stare. And that puts him back in the grip of the energy tentacles. Yep, things are going to Japanese-shaped really quickly. Elsewhere, G'Kar is off looking for Garibaldi, and his searches brought him to a salvager by the name of Isaac, who sold Garibaldi's Star Fury for parts. Two things about this troubles G'Kar. First, he is never going to get back that CD he loaned of, now that's what I call Narn Dirges. But the other thing is that there's just no way that he could accidentally come across a Star Fury out in space. It'd be like finding a penny in the middle of the desert. Space is big. I know. It's where I keep the cosmos when I'm not using it. The bartender tries to step in. G'Kar refuses, so Marcus manifests right then and there. That feat to summon a ranger once a day, that's an often overlooked bonus for your character. I gotta give props to G'Kar for going with a rogue build. After beating the crap out of the bad guy, the alarm is sounded and they're forced to exit. Although the bartender is going to be in real trouble when G'Kar posts a Google review of this place. Meanwhile, Franklin swings by to talk to Delenn about her fasting while she's in mourning. This complicates the fact that, well, she's a hybrid, so there's no guarantee what her physical limitations are right now. I mean, that's the danger of choosing a split-species background build that people do not often consider. Delenn doesn't want to listen to reason, though, as she blames herself for what happened, for not telling Sheridan the truth, and it leading to his trip to Zahadum and the crumbling of the alliance against the Shadows. Guilt and grief are not nice bedfellows. Both have a habit of taking the covers and farting loudly. On the alien planet, G'Kar and Marcus are hanging out, waiting for the heat to die down, but the game seems to have glitched and won't let G'Kar drop stars. It's as if he were somehow of intense interest to these people.
You pressed.
Could be he's got a knack for drawing attention to himself, too. Well, turns out the bartender knows that the Centauri have an interest in troublesome Narn, and after looking at some pictures, he identifies G'Kar for them, which is really bad. As the last of the Ka'ari, G'Kar is the most desired prisoner to the Centauri. Whoever brings him in will be rewarded and probably get enough XP to level up. Back on B5, Franklin is cleaning out Sheridan's stuff now that he's dead, and technically he is, so good call. But Franklin calls Delenn in to share a data crystal from the personal log, talking about breaking away from Earth, and how, despite how overwhelming it is, to need to keep on going. And also about his feelings for Delenn. So, that's all a good kick in the maybe I shouldn't deliberately starve myself to death side. Meanwhile, Marcus questioned Isaac in private, who admits that he got the location of the Star Fury from interplanetary expeditions, the ones who had sent the Icarus to Zahadum, remember? He also got a name, and so G'Kar badgers Marcus into finally going back to B5 to follow up on this lead, while G'Kar will continue to search for Garibaldi by going to where the ship was discovered and looking for further evidence. But that leaves him alone to face off against the approaching Centauri, which is a shame. If only he had King Arthur here to help, then he wouldn't be captured. On Centauri Prime, Londo is awakened in the middle of the night. It probably won't surprise you to learn that DoorDash never caught on Centauri Prime. Well, it's only the toady. He's there to summon Londo in the middle of the night, as the Emperor had commanded. Well, the Emperor is not happy at being kept waiting, but Londo talks his way through it with the grace of someone who can make dancing through raindrops look clumsy. Well, even he is unprepared for the sight that greets him. G'Kar is brought in chains.
Have you anything to say?
Do you by any chance happen to know where Mr. Garibaldi might be?
Because if not, then this has been a wasted trip and I should be going now. We finally see that Garibaldi is indeed still alive, trapped in a small room with nothing but a voice telling him to calm down and not strain himself, while he's trapped inside of a claustrophobia-inducing cell. Eventually, he just freaks out so much they have to hit him with knockout gas. Yeah, I think if I was in that room, I don't even have claustrophobia and I would be begging for the gas. As for G'Kar, he gets a visit in his cell from Londo, who chides him for doing something so idiotic as to leave the safety of B5, that the only rational explanation for this act is a death wish. So Londo makes clear that what is planned for G'Kar is quite clearly the most barbarous cruelty feasible. So bad I won't even make a joke. Suffice to say, they will inflict maximum suffering for its own sake until they decide to essentially vivisect him to death. It's so vile and sadistic, Londo says, that no, not even when he hated G'Kar at his worst would he have ever wished this fate upon him. It's something he literally would not wish on his worst enemy. But good news, he's got a plan. Bad news is, it's going to take a little while, which means some of the whole torture thing. G'Kar is going to have to just deal with that for right now, but in the end, Londo will save his life. Well, G'Kar has brought something to this party that Londo hadn't counted on. A pair of gigantic brass balls. Instead of taking the I will escape being tortured to death option, G'Kar wants to raise the stakes. He insists he will not help unless Narn is freed. And besides that, if he dies, who will Londo get to insult at the B5 council meetings? You know that Londo lives for that. Back in Zahadum, Sheridan comes across the remains of his fire. There seems to be no way out of here. Except for what Lorien suggests, though. Give in to the situation. Allow himself to proceed to the next moment. And die. Okay, admittedly, that last part is a hard sell. Well, unless you're in one of those Centauri execution things. Then, yeah, give me the quick death, please. Lorien admits that he is even older than the Vorlons in the Shadows. Actually, he's older than anybody. He is the first of the first ones. In fact, we gradually see that Lorien isn't this figure at all. Lorien is the energy being that is holding Sheridan right now. He's been down here for a long, long time. And the thing is, Kosh knew that. It's why he told Sheridan to jump. He knew that Lorien would be there to catch him. And finally, he gets to the explanation of why he keeps saying to give in to death. Because in a sense, Sheridan needs to be reborn. To not flee from death in fear, but to rather to come to terms with who he is, what he wants, why he chooses, so that his return to life will be with enlightenment. Enlightenment in who John Sheridan is, in all that that phrase could mean. In other words,
Step into the abyss and let go.
it's a leap of faith. Next week, the arc continues with the summoning.
It may not work, but I can hope. Hope is all.